Call in, guys. Talk to me nice.
Welcome back to Sports Tea. Welcome back to Sports Tea.
Talk to me nice. Nice. Call in, guys. Talk to me nice. Call in, guys. Talk to me nice. Talk to me nice.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Sports Tea. I hope that everyone's having an amazing weekend. Happy Memorial Day for those who have fought for us, for those who have, lost those who have made it possible for us to, continue to be part of just this country and continue to live our lives and live as free as we can. So, thank you all for joining. Do me a favor as everyone loads into the room, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and share the video. Share it out to your friends, your family, your social media networks. Let's grow the Sports Tea community and blow it up to be big. But anyway, tonight, what we're going to get into is we're going to talk about LeBron James' comments on Mind the Game. We're going to talk about the war between Rich Paul and David Falk. We're going to talk about the MJ versus LeBron negativity, just the vibe and what it's sort of done to the sports debate world. And we will get into the NBA playoffs. So let me go ahead and change this graphic. I'm sorry about that. It is supposed to look like this. Wait. I actually don't have... Wait, do I? Yes, this is the right graphic. Here we go. So welcome in, everyone. Happy Sunday. I hope that everyone's having a great day. I hope that some folks might have barbecued with their family, ate some good food. I want to salute to my moderators that are in the chat. You guys hold me down. I see Spurs Ann is here, Ace of Rage. Thank you so much for being here. Stanley Brown, Cressling Iceberg, welcome on in. Really appreciate you guys joining. We'll just jump right into, the first topic of the night. Guys, just so you know, I am watching the Knicks game in the background. So, I just decided to go live because honestly, it's killing me. My Knicks are about to go down 3-0. They don't look good out there. They don't have control of the game. The Pacers seem confident. They seem like they just have the kahunas to take this series from the Knicks and sort of dash their chances of making it to the finals. So the Pacers seem very confident, and it does look like they're going down 3-0, but can the Knicks make it a series? We shall see. So, we're at the half right now, and the Pacers have, I believe, a 15-point lead, something like that. So we will get into this first topic. And like I said, it's LeBron James. He's at it again. He's at it again on Mind the Game. And, it's just so interesting that he uses this podcast to insult prior eras of basketball. He has no respect. And I mean, LeBron James, he has zero respect for those who came before him. He has zero respect for, in my opinion, the NBA. It is all about him, all about how the NBA can serve him, its players, its teams, the organizations, how people can pad his stat, pad his legacy, and sort of glaze him all day. And if you're not doing that, then you don't know anything about basketball. You are a sorry person. You're a hater, all these things, right? So LeBron James to me has made the sports landscape, debate world, and just the sports media world an extremely negative place to be. I think that he's sort of ruined the essence of the NBA and what's made it so great over the last 20 some odd years. And this is just another example of how he continues to divide the sports world, how he has really, zero respect for those who came before him and have paved the way for him. And I'm going to get into it right at the end of the last episode. So this episode of Mind the Game, he's going through just like Brunson, where, it seems like it's a peaceful episode so far. Of course, he has to sort of say things that deflect from his game, and he has to talk about anything that makes him look good. So that's always going to happen in a LeBron James led show. But towards the end of the episode, he just had to and he just had to do this, disrespect prior generations. He did it in such a way that was just, again, Steve Nash is trying to save him. In this clip, Steve Nash is trying to sort of be an olive branch, to be the liaison between LeBron and the prior generation. And he wouldn't even let him save him. So he just continues to dig this hole. And I'm going to play it for you guys now, and then we're going to react. But guys, just brace yourself, because again, LeBron James is at it again. The narrative, the narcissism that is taking place is just through the roof. And let's play it, and we'll react together.
I think the other part is like, I'm obviously older than you, and my generation was slightly not that much different, because you didn't have social media when you were in high school, did you?
No.
So, thinking in that way, like, what did we do? We went out and played.
That's it.
So we played we learned through the hours, through trial and error, more so than technology.
Yeah, for sure.
The phone,
for sure.
the commercialization.
No basketball trainers and shit like that growing up.
Get your own rebound.
Get your own rebound.
Right?
Spin the ball out, turn around, jab, do your jab steps, one dribble, shoot, one dribble, two dribble, shoot. Mike and drill.
Right. And that doesn't mean that's better.
Right.
Everything's getting better.
Right.
It's just a matter of finding the balance.
Right.
Like where can we add some of the things we learned in the past back into the flow of information? But man, that's why I like your point. I love the way you ended that with just, the game is beautiful, man. Like, I know a lot of players in my generation are critical of the game. I watch these playoff games, man. I love the game. I love the NBA. I love the little battles, the chess matches, the randomness, but with principles. To me, it's in a beautiful place.
And I loved it growing up. I mean, shit. They just, the older generation, they make you not want to love the game that I grew up watching.
Right.
Like, I grew up loving a Knicks versus Bulls playoff series, or a Pacers versus Knicks playoff series. Like, I love that.
Right.
Like, or even like, obviously I'm from a small town outside of Cleveland, but watching the Cavs get an opportunity to play against, MJ, didn't never see it live, obviously, but everybody's excited about it. Seeing, Charles Barkley play in Phoenix, like, take his talents to Phoenix and help them get to the finals was like so fucking dope.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, like, those guys are really good players, but they weren't like top of the line guys and got them to the finals. And then, like, the generation, they talk so much shit about the game today.
Yeah.
And it makes you go back and watch the game back then. And it makes you not even want to appreciate it no more, like I did when I was a kid. Like, it was like, like,
it's a great point. It's a great point. When you go back and watch now, it doesn't feel as good as it did at the time.
It does not.
But it was great.
It was great.
The best on the planet.
Great. It was great. Or, these guys say, we can't be friends. You're friends with that. Why are you smiling on the court? And then someone goes to find a clip of, like, you standing next to this guy during the finals, smiling and laughing. It's like,
Right.
Can we just be honest with everyone? Just be honest. Like, I don't understand.
Memories are fallible. Right, memories are not perfect.
Yeah, if you want your movie to they write their own script.
Right. And you know what? Maybe we should flip it and be appreciative and I should, I'm an old head, but that the old heads are
You're
bitter
different.
and
You're
pissed.
different. You don't even try it.
Yeah,
don't even try
the
it.
bitter and
do
pissed
not try to be
competitive.
Do not try to be the CEO and president of the old head committee. Don't do it.
But maybe we should say
they're gonna string you out.
Right?
You're too positive. You're too appreciative.
Maybe I am.
Yes, you are. You're too positive and too appreciative for.
But maybe it's also cool that they're like, that's who they are, the competitive dudes, and they can't let go. And that's what made them great. And so, although it can be frustrating at times, and we have to put it in perspective, it's also great that that's who they are. That's how they got where they got, and they won't let go.
It's all good. It's all part of the story.
Right?
It's all part of the story. Yeah, it's an all embarrassing part of the story. Because LeBron James couldn't handle a little criticism from the old heads when every single generation got it. And I did a video on this in the past. Wilt Chamberlain criticized Michael Jordan. He came out against Kareem. There were legends before legends that always have something to say, and you don't say anything back. That's how it is. But LeBron James just feels the need to defend himself. I mean, I found him to be so disrespectful, so disgusting. His comments were he goes back and that's how you know LeBron James didn't watch growing up. I don't think he watched much basketball growing up. It's obvious when you take a look at how he plays the game. He has zero fundamentals. He pretty much bum rushes the lane, has no post game, could not, even work out with Hakeem Olajuwon, who tried to help him, who tried to teach him. He recognized, hey, you're a power forward. That should be, you should be mastering these kinds of moves. But he couldn't do that. He failed his workout with Hakeem Olajuwon. He's just, and shout out to Uncommon Sense because he did a whole video on that. And I thought it was quite excellent, just exposing the fact that LeBron James, he doesn't have a bag. He doesn't have a signature move. He doesn't have the ability to play in a system and work alongside teammates that are playing in their position. He's pretty much eliminated the positions in basketball. And now, because he can't win late in his career, he needs a center, he needs this, he needs that. And I mean, he's always needed so much help. He's always needed a center. He's always needed 3-and-D guys. He's always needed superstars. Let's just start with that, right? But it's so interesting how LeBron James is saying, oh, they criticize us that nobody was friends. That's not the case. They weren't friends on the court so much. Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas, they used to kiss before every game. It didn't stop them from being really big competitors. You had guys that were really close friends. Michael Jordan was close with Charles Barkley. It wasn't that like everybody hated each other, but you did have rivalries. You had real rivalries. The Knicks and the Pacers hated each other. The Knicks and Cleveland Cavaliers, they had a rivalry for a while. You had the Bulls and the Knicks with a rivalry. You had many rivalries and stories to tell, and it was basketball related. And, today's league, you have players joining up. That is the key difference that LeBron James fails to see. It's not the criticism, oh, everybody's friends. No, you want to play with your friends. Michael Jordan didn't want to play with his friends. That's the difference. So it's not about just being buddy and nobody was friends. So nobody played alongside their friends that were also superstars. So that's the key point that he's missing there. Even just his comment to Steve Nash, don't try to defend the old heads. Like, he's not even allowed to have his opinion about this. And LeBron James has to be right. He must have the final authority when all Steve Nash is trying to do is help him out. And clearly Steve Nash is uncomfortable and doesn't really want to be a part of bashing old generations. I mean, Steve Nash had to have firsthand, secondhand embarrassment just sitting there listening to that and being a part of that conversation. Absolutely disgusting, but he had to do it. Why? Because he's under the thumb of LeBron James, knowing that something can come out of this podcast. His next job in the NBA, likely a coaching position, right? So I just think that he's in it to win it. He sees the bigger picture. He sees the light at the end of the tunnel. Hey, let me just sit here and grin and bear it and try to get through this. LeBron, he clearly does not and did not only does he not know the history of the sport, and he's going to sit here and lie and make up things. I mean, he also just clearly didn't watch. He talked about the most obvious series in history of sports, but you're not a true historian of the sport. You're not a student of the game. You don't work on your game. You constantly say on Mind the Game that, my game has never changed since I was in high school. That's all he says. Oh, I know how to play the game right since I was a kid. So your game hasn't changed since you were a kid. You're still not taking the last shot ever since you bricked it in high school. You're still deferring to somebody else. All the pressure has to go on to somebody else. Mind the Game is it's a mind game. Honestly, this is mind games. It's not minding the game. This is not intelligently or eloquently speaking about the sport of basketball, the history of it, or how they're playing today at all, in my opinion. It's just a vehicle. It's like a marketing vehicle. It's just another marketing tool for LeBron James to spread false narratives and lies. That's all that this is. And I hope that you guys, are able to see through this. I hope, and I know our audience in Sports Tea is able to do this. I just wonder how LeBron James fans reconcile this. How do they make excuses for him talking like this about the older generation? How dare they do this? He can't appreciate the game anymore. When he looks back and watches it, he can't appreciate it. What do you mean? What do you mean you can't appreciate it? Why? You can't appreciate it because somebody's criticizing you? What a baby, a LaCry baby. LeBron James is one of the weakest superstars in the history of the NBA. He probably is the weakest. Steph Curry would not come out and say anything about criticism from old head basketball players because he has respect. His father was an NBA player during that generation. But when LeBron James goes, so growing up, you love to watch the Knicks and the Bulls. You love to watch the Knicks and the Cavs. This is what he says. But when they criticize him and he goes back to watch, he can no longer appreciate it. Why would you let somebody criticizing you impact your opinion? If a game is good, if a series was good, if you loved it growing up, then why wouldn't you still love it today? 90s basketball was the best era of the NBA. And I mean, it's all debatable. That's what I grew up, really loving. But there are plenty of people that are still alive today to talk about when Wilt Chamberlain played the sport. To talk about the Larry Bird, the Magic Johnsons, the Celtics, Lakers rivalry. That was huge for basketball. Huge. The sport was essentially built on rivalries. So when you get away from what the sport is built on, people are going to criticize that. When you get away from playing, 100% of the game and you're only giving people 50%, i.e. playing offense only, and you're not playing offense and defense, people are going to criticize that. And LeBron James, he gives zero sort of reasoning for why they're not okay with being criticized. I don't hear the reasoning for why it's not okay to criticize when you're not playing the sport in a way that fans can appreciate. And then he was begging NBA fans to, to basically to bear with him. He was begging NBA fans to bear with him and say, hey, we want to give you what you want. No, you don't. You don't give a damn about NBA fans. You insult NBA fans. You insult you insult the generations and the eras of the sport that we appreciate so much. You divide NBA fans. You are negative. You sit there and you insult prior eras and you call yourself the GOAT when you didn't play against any of these people, so you have no idea what you would have done in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s or anything? LeBron James is drinking a lot of wine, obviously, in Le Mind games, okay? And It's Just a Game. Uncommon Sense calls it It's Just a Game. And I just think that the wine I don't know, maybe the wine is taking over. Maybe he's just saying anything on this podcast. I have no idea. Maybe the wine is a little too strong. Who knows? But LeBron James, he's never going to be able to walk down these kinds of comments. And when he gets older and when he is looking for the respect from guys that are playing the game in the future, I'm sure he's going to feel similarly when they start disrespecting him. And I mean, it would be rightfully so because he's not the GOAT. He was never really in that conversation. This is a made up debate. And, I think that there's just so much happening right now in the sports world as LeBron James, as his career is about to sunset and, he's about to fade into the background. I think that there are going to be more people exposing him, and he's trying to get ahead of it. He's trying to push out fake, false narratives and lies so that his fan base can run with that and continue to spread that so they have something to live off of. That's what he's giving. He's giving his fanboys just some content to live off of and some words of that come straight from his mouth that they can spread. That's what he's trying to do. And he is taking that kind of like Trump approach. Like, hey, I know I have a crazy fan base. Let me employ them to do this dirty work for me. That's why he has the LaMedia, the Nick Wrongs, the LaShannon Sharps, those kinds of people to spread the sort of negativity, the false narratives, the cap, the lies. He has a lot of people to do his bidding, doesn't he? But Michael Jordan is obviously, he's coming back to NBC. And he's going to be a contributor there with all of that kind of news happening. Rich Paul and David Falk have been beefing, guys. They have been just going back and forth. It's been a war of words. And honestly, I never expected either one to be able to clap back so fast. I mean, I know that they have the tools and obviously the platforms to be able to do that very quickly. However, I just thought that they would let it marinate, but they are obviously Rich Paul. He could not wait to respond to David Falk's comments. And, he said a lot. He definitely, and this is in response to David Falk essentially saying that if Michael Jordan was able to cherry pick his teams the way that LeBron James have been able to, he would have 15 rings. And he said that LeBron James is probably a top 10 player. So, he definitely had some digs in there in this interview. And it was just interesting. I would say less than 24 hours later, Rich Paul is responding to defend his king and, to essentially clap back. So it was the most clutchest clap back that I've seen from Clutch Sports in a while. And I don't think that it helped Clutch Sports. I don't think that it helped Rich Paul or LeBron James in his GOAT case. I think that it made them look really bad. I think that it was another yet embarrassing publicity stunt or, just sort of PR blunder on Rich Paul's part. But, they're never going to stop doing these things because they have this cult-like group, right? They're, to me, he is like the leader of the cult that can help to spread these delusional narratives all over the place. And he goes on some of the biggest platforms to do this. So, Rich Paul, he was on the Rich Eisen show responding to David Falk's comments. And here's what he had to say.
Listen, we can't have revisionist history and we all want to just determine who's the GOAT and who's the best and so on and so forth. But I just thought that was a little beneath David to say that. Michael never had to leave. Michael's never been the underdog in any finals. Not one time. Michael never had a 24-hour, 365 news cycle. He never had shows built strictly to criticize him. People made millions of dollars criticizing LeBron James. That was their entire job. Michael played for Dean Smith. Michael played for Phil Jackson. And Michael had Jerry Krause. I'm the biggest Michael Jordan fan ever. Love Michael Jordan. And I don't think Michael Jordan would have used the term cherry pick. So I'm not up here to discredit Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan transcended our game to a level that we all benefited from.
What the hell do you mean, Rich Paul? When you say Michael never had a 24-hour, 365 news cycle, he never had shows built strictly to criticize him. What shows are built strictly to criticize LeBron James? See, this is the BS. This is the BS. We cover the sport. It's a 24 hours news cycle. There are plenty of positive things that are said about LeBron James on every show. Every show. This is where the whining and moaning accusations come from him and his camp. What 24-hour, 365 news cycle has shows built strictly to criticize him? So in other words, the shows that criticize him never, ever, ever give him credit, huh? Ever. Look, man, I ain't got time. I'm not going to even waste my time with this. I'm going to get to my next guest. I'm going to get to my next guest right
It's just so crazy to me that Rich Paul can make the comments that he makes. He talked about cherry clan picking. He tried to appeal to the emotions of Black people all over that support LeBron just because he's this, he comes from an underserved community in Cleveland. He was the kid from Akron that wasn't supposed to make it. He is this Black sports hero, right? That is constantly sort of appealing to race baiting. And that is what Rich Paul is trying to do. He's race baiting here. He's trying to say that, David Falk had things handed to him, that he had players handed to him in his lap. He's trying to discredit him, say that he was not, in fact, a talented agent, that, coaches, he was in the pocket of coaches and was able to get the best players in order to, basically be the best agent at that time. He talked about Michael Jordan being able to benefit from one of the best organizations and best GMs and presidents in Jerry Krause. He spoke really irresponsibly, and he said just straight up and down lies. And I think that even just with him talking about the media and how LeBron James is this victim of the media, it's just like he's a fake victim. He's not a victim in this. I mean, they have so much media power. They are a media machine, Clutch Sports. LeBron James, he's got several shows, platforms to go out and spread all of these lies. People did not build channels, websites, or shows based off of hating on LeBron. That's not a thing. Now, the GOAT debate has definitely driven a lot of the sports world media, but sports networks were not created because of LeBron James. Certainly not. There's always going to be someone else. The NBA is going to NBA after LeBron James leaves. We're going to be talking about somebody else, whomever the NBA promotes. So whoever the NBA promotes to be the next face of the league, whenever they can't, whenever they decide that they've had enough of LeBron James, they're going to promote someone else. And that person will be trending. And that person will be the next, internet sensation. And that's just what it is, right? So Rich Paul's a liar. He is, I honestly, I think that Rich Paul's an extortionist. That's what I think. I think that he strong arms teams. He lets them know, hey, like, I'm going to make sure that you don't get access to any players. I've got all the talent and I'm going to make sure that so-and-so doesn't go to your team if you don't do this or that. I just think that for him to make it seem like basically what he's doing is so historical. I'm this Black agent who's done all of these things. And I mean, he has done all of these things, but I don't think that he's revolutionized basketball. I don't think that he's necessarily done things outside of really caring for the player's emotional well-being and mental being, which is something that's happening across, I would say, the world. Really, mental health has become a huge topic of conversation across all industries and different professions and things of that nature. So I just don't know what Rich Paul has really done for the NBA to move it forward or for the players to move it forward. And it's funny because David Falk, he responded lightning quick to Rich Paul's comments. He then went on to Stephen A. Smith's YouTube channel, the Stephen A. Smith Show, and had a lengthy interview with Stephen A. Smith. And we're going to get into his comments. We're going to play them. And I mean, like I said, he responded really quickly. He touched upon a lot of things. David Falk touched upon what it's like to be an agent today. He talked about whether or not he'd want to be an agent today. He talked about Rich Paul's comments and how he found them to be quite, basically erroneous. And that, when we talk about revisionist history, Clutch Sports they are the ones revising history. That's clear. they're the ones revising history. And David Falk, he's going to respond. I have different clips. It's going to be a long segment, but we're going to get through it because he said so many gems. He dropped so many jewels. And I think it's really important for us to hear what he has to say and really dissect those points. So we'll get into the first soundbite, and then we'll break and we'll chat, and I'll read some comments, and then we'll continue through. But here's the first one, and like I said, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Let me say at the outset, clearly LeBron James is a great player in any era. You'd be foolish to suggest otherwise. His longevity, his statistics are amazing. I think what makes Michael goes way beyond the court. I think on the court, Michael obviated the center position. Prior to Jordan, you needed the Elijah Wants, the Ewings, the Kareems, the Bob Lanairs. And the way Michael played, he made it unnecessary to have a great center. Look who he won the championships with: Bill Weddington, Dickie Simpkins, Bill Cartwright. And I think that had a huge impact on the game. Secondly, and perhaps even more importantly, I think Michael individually broke down every barrier that existed for professional basketball players, and in particular African-American professional basketball players, to become national marketing brand ambassadors. So the whole generation of LeBrons and Kobe's and Steph Curry's having their own shoes and being in commercials did not exist before Michael came in the game. Magic didn't have it. Bird didn't have it. Dr. J didn't have it. Kareem didn't have it. And I think that's a preponderant impact. I think third, I believe he's the first NBA player to become a billionaire. I believe he's the first NBA player to become a majority owner of an NBA team. And finally, he had a tremendous impact on fashion. He changed the look of the way the players play with the long shorts. He made bald as beautiful. And so I think beyond comparing statistics, who had more points, who averaged more, even who had more championships, I think Michael's impact is extremely broad and deep in what he did to change the game. I don't think any other player in history had that kind of an impact.
What do you make of people who would look, and I want to get far beyond those two individuals that we're talking about for the moment, but I got this one question to ask you. What do you make of folks and their assertions that the times that we're living in now, the advent of social media, the digital stratosphere, the microscope that is on players in today's game like never before, the impression is given that even the great Michael Jordan, with his unparalleled popularity, I compare him to no one. The only person I've ever compared him to was Michael Jackson, for crying out loud. That's how popular Michael Jordan was. When you listen to people talk today, they talk about the climate, the environment, the society that we're living in today, and they say it's far more invasive than it has ever been, which makes the road tougher for a guy like LeBron James compared to what Jordan had to endure during his playing career. You've been around a long time. You know this business like the back of your hand. What do you make of that, of those assertions?
Clearly, social media has brought the fans closer to the players. Everyone can express their opinion. You don't have to work for a newspaper or a television station to have an opinion. But I think it's the natural tendency when you're the best at anything. There's a human tendency to try to tear people down. And certainly Michael had that because of his immense popularity. People criticize him, for example, for not being political enough, not expressing his desire for certain candidates. And so, sure, I think that the social media has changed the game. I also think if you want to be objective, the game has changed itself. I had this discussion about a month ago with Rob Thorne, who's a very dear friend of mine, who drafted Michael Jordan. And he said to me, which I didn't know, he said, do you realize today that the average NBA team takes 1/3 more shots than they did in Jordan's era? So when Jordan averaged 38 points a game, if you increase that by 1/3, that means he would average 52. Now, I think Michael could have averaged, and Michael took 1.7 threes per game. That's all he took. I think he could have averaged almost anything he wanted if that was what was required to win. That's all he cared about, was winning. And I think his record of 6 out of 6 is the greatest in the history of the NBA. Never lost never lost a championship.
Well, don't forget, he also never allowed a championship series to get to a seventh game. He took you out in 6 or less every single time. That's the Michael Jordan that we're talking about here. David, expanding beyond Michael Jordan and LeBron James, when we think about the age that we're living in, one of the discussions your comments prompted was player empowerment and the kind of things that have taken place in today's NBA and in today's sports world. As an agent, looking at the state of affairs that exist, not just in the NBA, but professional sports, as it pertains to sovereignty involving players, player empowerment, et cetera, what are the kind of thoughts that come to your mind as to what we're witnessing today and whether or not it's good or it's bad for the world of sports in this day and age?
Guys, David Falk, he said so much already, right? He talked about how Michael Jordan changed the game. He talked about how Michael Jordan, like just his impact on small things. I mean, Michael Jordan made it sexy to be bald. If you were, imagine your hair is gone. And today what we see men with lace front wigs on. LeBron James is wearing a lace front wig on every day. His whole front of his hair is gone, right? And when Michael Jordan's was going, he just let it go. And he just made it really cool. He did the earring. It changed the way players wore their uniform. He just made sports fashion look so good, right? And he really made a brand out of himself. Michael Jordan is a brand, whereas I just don't think that LeBron James is a real brand. He might be a business, and obviously he's a billionaire now, right? So we give him credit for that, and he's made so much money in the NBA. And obviously he's had a signature shoe deal. He's been with Nike for a long time. He's got a lifetime deal with them. He came out of high school with $100 million deal. So obviously he's accomplished a lot in his career, but it's mainly been to serve him. I don't know what LeBron has done that's helped really other players move the league forward, and we're going to get into it because I'm going to pull it up. I just Googled it. Like, how has LeBron James and Rich Paul changed and influenced the NBA, throughout their careers? And honestly, it's a very vague, broad sort of answers that AI generates and pulls up, which I find to be interesting. And then when you compare it to Michael Jordan and everything that David Falk just said, none of those things kind of come up. So, Michael Jordan, he literally made it possible for all these shoe contracts and players to really make big dollars out of the NBA and outside of the NBA. So, David Falk, he made a lot of really great points, I think, and he continues. So he makes some more really great points, and I'm going to play them for you guys. So let's keep listening, and then we'll continue to react. Actually, what I'll do is I'll read some super chats in the meantime, and then we'll get into the next sound bite. So we have our first super chat from Sun Goku. Thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Ladiva's at it again. I mean, it's like can't stop, won't stop. He's been to so many Diddy parties. He just can't help himself. We have some other really great comments from Spurs and Dom. What is your opinion on Nash's stint in Brooklyn? That's a really good question. I think it was a failure, to answer it plainly. If you haven't watched LeBron LaFlop compilation video, you must. It's hilarious and sad at the same time. Thanks, Jack Snipper. I surely will give it a go. And then this other comment really stuck out to me. It's like when Trump said he hates America because he wasn't president. LeBron hates basketball because he's not the GOAT. That is wow. I couldn't have said that better myself. I love that comment. So salute to you. And one of our longtime members, Eden Jr., salute Dominique. MJ showed that he could play for great coaches in efficient systems. Leno Game played for Coach K, who made Kobe Bryant the #1 option. Absolutely. And it's about skill set, right? It's about what you're able to really deliver in a team sport. And I just don't see LeBron James better than so many players that are able to play a 5-man game. So we sit there and we say, oh, LeBron James can't do one-on-one. He's meant for a 5-man game. And then we see him in a 5-man game and it doesn't look like he's meant for that either. So it seems like he's a one-man band, a bum rusher of the lane, and really just has not a lot of skills, very low skilled player. But I do want to go on to David Falk and what he continued to talk about, because it is some really good stuff here.
Great question. So number one, I I believe that players, great players, have always been in power. I think the biggest difference between today's generation of players and, if you will, Jordan's generation, the Magic's generation, is how the players exercise the power. Now, if you understand that in 1982, that was a long time ago, the NBA ushered in a salary cap. And for the last 43 years, the players have essentially owned 50% of the revenues. So they're 50-50 partners with the league. The only way players
Yeah.
can make more money is to grow the business of the NBA. Now, I believe that when players exercise their power poorly and they make statements that denigrate the game, um, I think that they're impeding the ability of themselves to make more money, which is foolish. So I'll give you a couple of examples. You want to talk about player empowerment? In 1984 and 1985, there were two players in the history of the game that opted out of the group licensing program. One was named Michael Jordan, one was named Patrick Ewing. They did not allow the league to use them in group licensing. And I opted out of both of them. You're not allowed to do that today. In 1985, Patrick Ewing became the first player in history to have an early termination option in his contract. He signed a 10-year deal for 3 times more money than Magic made the year before as a veteran. And he had the option to opt out after 6 years if market conditions change. That is empowerment. Michael Jordan was the first player to have a love of the game clause that did not require him to that allowed him to practice at North Carolina in the summer, which came to be known as the love of the game clause. Darnell Valentine in 1980 became the first player to challenge the league's ability under paragraph 13B to prevent players from doing endorsements or interviews without permission of the team. That's in every contract now, Valentine versus the Portland Trailblazers. So I could give you 100 examples of player empowerment. Patrick Ewing became the first rookie in history to be the highest paid player in the league. He made 55% more money than Kareem, who's the highest paid veteran of all time. I believe that that's empowerment. Danny Ferry did the same thing in 1990, and he clearly was not one of the great players in the history of the league. So I believe that players in every sport have always had tremendous power. But I think that today, I don't think they use it as judiciously as they should if the goal is to make more money and grow the business.
Well, let me ask you this, David. Give me an example, if you can. If it's compromising, please don't bother. But if you can, give me an example of players that have exercised influence and exercised power, but you don't believe it's necessarily for their good or for the good of the game. Could you highlight an example that wouldn't be good to illustrate your point?
Well, so the simplest one I would say is triggers. Okay. Now, I personally probably made 10 or 15 major trades. I made the Patrick Ewing trade to Seattle. I didn't want to make it. I didn't believe in it, but he and the Knicks agreed it would be best to have a change of scenery. It was a 13-player trade. I traded Stephon Marbury in New Jersey in a 13-player trade with Sam Cassell. I did that behind the scenes. The minute you announce publicly as a player that you're not going to play anymore, Harden as an example, it makes it so much harder to make the trade for the exact reason that Rich Paul indicated it's hard for LeBron, because you're shining the spotlight on the player, and the other teams around the league know that the player is demanded a trade. He doesn't want to be there. There's going to be a problem. And so they're not going to offer fair value. And so the very goal the player has of moving, he frustrates or makes more difficult by publicly announcing it. Now, the opposite of that, interestingly to me, and I'm a big Nico Harrison fan, is the fact that Dallas only talked to one team to trade Luka. Luka's one of the top 5 players in the league, and there wasn't competitive bidding. I know they had their reasons for it. I don't understand all the dynamics. So I'm not here to criticize it, but it surprised me that if you're gonna sell one of the most valuable assets in the league, that you wouldn't want to have the highest level of competitive bidding. The trade is the easiest example I could give you, Stephen. Or, I'll give you an example on the agent side, okay? I believe that
Okay.
every time an agent comes out publicly and says any of the following, my player's not getting enough playing time, he's not getting enough shots, not making enough money, the team is taking advantage of them. They are advertising that they've done a really lousy job of being an agent. Because if they were doing a good job, none of those things would be happening. And if they were happening, then the answer is to sit down with the owner or the general manager behind the scenes and try to figure out a way to improve it. I'm going to tell you a funny story, okay? In 2000, I signed my only high school player in my 50-year career, a guy named Darius Miles. He was the third pick in the draft. And
Yes.
I went to a game one night in LA to see Elton Brand. Our company at that time represented 8 of the players on the Clippers, 8. I didn't represent them all myself. I only had Elton. I walk into the locker room to see Elton, and he motions me to talk to Darius. Apparently, on the way from the locker room, from the court into the locker room, Darius hadn't played a minute. He cursed out the coach, Alvin Gentry, who I've known since he was the assistant coach of Larry Brown at Kansas. Great guy. So I go over to Alvin and I say, Alvin, what's the problem? He said, David, I love Darius, but he's not working hard enough. So, okay. So I told Darius to come to my hotel room the next day. And I said to him, son, do you want to play or do you want to sit on the bench? He said, of course I want to play, Mr. Falk. That's why I'm unhappy. I said, well, I don't think you want to play. And he said, why would you say that? I said, because if you want to play, you have to show the coach that you want to play. And the way you show him is by working harder. He doesn't feel you work hard enough. And I promise you that if you work harder, he will play you more. That was on a Thursday. The next night they played the Houston Rockets. Darius played 30 minutes and had 21-9. I went to congratulate him after the game. Couldn't find him. Where do you think he was? He was in the weight room.
Probably the
working
coach's
out
office.
after the game.
He's in the weight room.
Now I went up to Coach Gentry, who I really like, and said, Alvin, is this complicated? You want him to play, you want him to work, and he wants to play. Now, most coaches in the NBA today are reluctant to tell their players they're not working hard enough. Now, I'm not talking about the Popoviches or the Pat Rileys. I'm talking about the younger coaches because they're afraid they're going to lose the relationship with the players. The players are so macho, they don't want to tell a coach that it's bothering them that they're not playing. They don't think that's cool. And I think you need to communicate. So my job is to talk to a guy like Alvin and tell him that. And it solved the problem. And so I think on both sides, this is a thing that should be done behind the scenes, privately. My mom, who's a very highly educated woman, my life mentor,
David, he just said so much. And I know that was a long sound bite and there's a few of them, but the player empowerment piece is something that's huge, right? I mean, when you talk about all of the examples of player empowerment, and I hate when LeBron James, Rich Paul tries to take credit for player empowerment. They did not empower players. Players have always been able to leave at the end of their contract. That's bullshit. He's not the first player to do that or to make it okay to do that. It's just that when you want to be compared to Michael Jordan, what happens is you're going to be criticized for that. That is why he was criticized for leaving his team. That wasn't seen as a good thing. NBA players across the league didn't view that as a good thing. So I don't know why we were crediting LeBron James and Rich Paul for player empowerment at any point in time. And the examples that David Falk gave, I mean, he was able to get Alonzo Mourning the first $100 million contract that he turned down. He declined it because David Falk knew he could get him a better short-term deal. Again, I mean, you had Michael Jordan getting the love of the game clause. So many things. There has been Kareem Abdul-Jabbar left the Milwaukee Bucks. He requested a trade out and he got it. So this goes way back. Leaving your team as a superstar is no big deal once you finish your contract. Now, demanding trades out and stuff like that, that's still frowned upon. So demanding a trade and to get out of your contract when you have not finished your contract, that is still frowned upon. Big time. People don't respect that. The media still bashes players who do that. LeBron James has never forced a trade out of his contract. So we need to stop talking about player empowerment like every single thing that LeBron James and Rich Paul have done haven't been done before. And again, like I'm going to pull something up for you guys. I just typed it into Google and I said, hey, what has LeBron James done? What have they done? Rich Paul, LeBron James significantly contributed to player empowerment. This is what even Google gives them credit for, but yet there's no real example of this other than LeBron leaving his team. Everything that LeBron has done has been to serve himself, to serve his own career, his own devious plot to call himself the GOAT. None of these things have been done to serve the league and the future of the league. So he's contributed to player empowerment in the NBA by championing a shift where players, especially superstars, have more control over their careers and destinations. This was achieved through establishing Clutch Sports, a player agency, and LeBron's actions in free agency, which demonstrated the power of players to dictate their own futures. Really? So they didn't always have that power. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't leave his team. Nobody else left their team. Nobody, just LeBron James. Then Google, it dives in a little deeper, talks about Clutch Sports, a new model of representation, focus on players. Rich Paul, in partnership with LeBron, founded Clutch Sports with the goal of putting players' interests first and empowering them to build their careers and brands. Emphasis on control. Clutch Sports emphasized that players should be in control of their own careers rather than solely being loyal to one organization. Clutch Sports was designed to navigate the changing landscape of professional sports where athletes are increasingly empowered and have a greater say in their careers. Okay. So the emphasis of control, it was for LeBron James and Clutch Sports literally to control LeBron's career, his destiny, and the entire landscape of the NBA. They have had a chokehold on the NBA. They have had a monopoly on talent in the NBA. They've been in every single talent conversation, basically. And I still don't know why Anthony Edwards left Clutch Sports. I wonder if it was because he wasn't getting helped. He would have just been there to serve LeBron James in his potential GOAT case. But, AI continues to tell us what they've done. So LeBron James has pioneered player empowerment. He pioneered? Pioneer. When you have had several players that have left their teams, superstars, at the end of their contracts. The decision, LeBron's move to Miami Heat in 2010, famously known as a decision, demonstrated that players could choose their own destiny and form super teams. So it demonstrated that players were going to form super teams. And even still, they weren't the first super team in NBA history. The Celtics, they have been super teams going all the way back to the inception of the sport. Cut it out. Bill Russell's team was a super team. Redefining the athlete's role. LeBron pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be a player, redefining them as leaders of businesses and encouraging them to take more control of over their lives. Really, because it was Michael Jordan who created and was able to really make the athlete a business. Michael Jordan was the person who individualized the sport and got away from, fans essentially loving teams and really just loving and having the superstar fandom, delusional fandom. People would literally pass out when they saw Michael Jordan, just like they would do Michael Jackson. So that was Michael Jordan. Redefining the athlete's role. Michael Jordan was the one that decided, hey, I want to play basketball whenever I want. I want to play in the summer. I want to play on the playground. He wanted the smoke any and everywhere. He didn't want the NBA deciding what he was able to do, when he was able to play basketball and when he wasn't. Impact on free agency. LeBron's decisions in free agency inspired other players to consider their options and negotiate for better terms. Really. None of these things that Google is listing and AI is spitting out to me, literally, it has been a game changer. None of these things was LeBron James the first person to do it. He was the first person to make a spectacle. And that's what's missing out of this AI, answer to me. That LeBron James was the first player to make a spectacle out of deciding where you're going to go, out of anything. Anything that LeBron James has done has been a spectacle, including the most recent spectacle of his son wearing an NBA costume. All season long, we had to watch Bronny wear an NBA costume and be somewhere that he didn't belong. More than just superstars, LeBron's influence extended beyond just empowering superstars. He encouraged all players to redefine themselves as leaders. Oh, really? Leaders of what? I'm waiting. Because so many players are not leaders. They don't want to be leaders and have come out and said that. So where's the inspiration to be a leader? What LeBron James did is he inspired people to not focus on their game, to do other things like podcasting instead of, focusing on their game and getting better season over season. So more than just superstars, no, he inspired people to have a lackadaisical approach, a lazy approach to their actual job. That's what he inspired. Combined impact, shifting the narrative. Together, Rich Paul and LeBron James shifted the narrative of player loyalty and control, empowering players to take a more active role in their careers. Increase player leverage. Their efforts led to increased player leverage in negotiations and a greater focus on individual player interests. Yeah, I mean, when you decide to lock up all the talent in the league and you're on, you have a strong hold and you're able to basically extort teams, the commissioner and teams in the NBA, yeah, I would think that you have leverage in negotiations. Changing the game. They significantly altered the way players were perceived and how they were treated within the NBA. Oh, really? I think that what they allowed for were players to not be held accountable. What they allowed for is that nobody can tell you, hey, you're playing like shit. Your teammates can't tell you that. The coach can't tell you that. Nobody can tell the players anything. What LeBron James has done is allowed for the patient to take over the asylum. And I love that. My good friend T-Bert, he said that to me one day. He said the patients have taken over the asylum. And I love that saying because that's what LeBron James has done. Nobody basically has a role in the NBA. GMs don't necessarily have a role. Even organizations, like what is the point of having an organization, a GM, president, people who, a coach, if, you're going to let a superstar dictate all of those moves based on their personal life and who they might have a quid pro quo with. I just think it's really quite disgusting. But, David Falk, he continues to go on to share how player empowerment has been used for bad. So today's players have used player empowerment in negative ways, in ways that divide the sports world, in ways that don't support or promote the game's future or allow for players in the future to get these big contracts. Players today are basically ruining it for the future generation. Their attitudes, their load management, their stealing money in paychecks, and honestly, their lack of willingness to put the game first. So, David Falk, he continued to talk about that. He continued to talk about how players need to be, they need to have a little bit more respect, class in the way that they represent themselves and the way they carry themselves in the league. And they should not be like what James Harden did with Daryl Morey, coming out and saying that he's a liar and all these things that they do publicly, which really damages their ability to get traded. So, he doesn't see a lot of these things as, behaviors that really move the sport forward. And he does continue. So Stephen A. Smith, he asked some really good questions, and David Falk, I mean, he really dug in. He went deep in his answers, and I appreciate that. He gave examples. He told stories. These are things that Rich Paul can't do. Rich Paul can't give us examples and stories. He gives us lies. He said that Michael Jordan was never the underdog. In 2 out of his 6 final series, he was the underdog. They didn't think he could continue to win against Utah. They thought, okay, the Bulls were, they were at the end and could they win this last series? That Utah was the team to beat. And I believe that same year they had lost both of their matches against Utah. So they played them twice in the season and they lost. So, the prediction was that they were going to lose that series, and Utah, they were the favorite. Also, the very first title run that Michael Jordan had, they were not the favorite to win against the Lakers. So Rich Paul continues to lie. And why? Because he didn't watch, because he doesn't know. And instead of just saying that and maybe shutting your mouth and sitting one out, just God forbid LeBron James or Rich Paul sit one out. They just have to reply to everything so quick, so fast, even if they're wrong, even if they don't have all the information, even if they're telling lies, even if they're telling the story in a way that is just not true. I'll never forget that matchup between Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins. And Bernard Hopkins already lost to Roy Jones, and he was coming out and they were promoting their next fight. Well, actually, they didn't actually have a fight. Bernard Hopkins wanted to fight Roy Jones, and Roy Jones was saying, look, I'll fight you, but it's got to be 60-40. It's got to be a 60-40 split. I already beat you. So I'm giving you an opportunity to get in the ring with me again. I'm giving you an opportunity to make millions of dollars. But hey, this is not going to be a 50-50 split. You got to agree to give me 60% because, hey, I'm giving you a second chance. I already beat you. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. And I'll never forget, he even created a rap song about it. And that's why I said so quick, so fast. He was like, so quick, so fast. I'll whip your ass. It was really, really funny. But anyway, I think that David Falk, when he talks about player empowerment, he nails it. I think that when he talks about how basketball players are carrying themselves and the way that they're not moving the sport forward with some of their behavior, I think he nailed it. And we're going to listen to that. So, and we'll react together.
With Jerry Krause, and if you saw The Last Dance, there were many.
Of course I did. Of course I did.
Kept it private. Now, I was amused when Rich Paul, who I really like, said that Michael had the advantage of having Jerry Krause. And I don't want to say anything negative about Jerry Krause because he died. I'm good friends with Reinsdorf. But if you ask me, would I put him in my top 25 GMs over the last 50 years? I would not. I think he made a lot of very imprudent decisions. He drafted Charles Oakley over Karl Malone. He drafted Brad Sellers over Johnny Dawk as a national player there. I think he made a lot of terrible decisions, but they won, and that's all that matters.
David, I want to know, I've always been very interested in asking you this question. When Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came into the league, obviously they deserve an immense credit for building the popularity of the NBA brand. Most would argue Jordan took it to another level, but he did so because his individual greatness was so supreme, so awesome that, he took the game in a different direction, but it also individualized the game more. And as a result, people view that as hurting the game. I look at LeBron, and not that he decided to depart from Cleveland to Miami, but how he handled it. As you talk about respecting the game, respecting the league, respecting the owner, etc. And the fact that he was willing to be so publicly defiant, or dare I say dismissive, of Dan Gilbert at that time, I thought it served to compromise player empowerment to some degree, because collective bargaining negotiations took place thereafter. Remember, there was a Chris Paul trade to the Lakers that was ultimately nixed once Dan Gilbert erased holy hell by writing a public letter to the league, etc. When you think about the damage that has been done to the league, which obviously is flourishing, and so we got to be careful with that word damaging. But if there's a negative, is it veering away from team with Bird and Magic in Boston and LA to the individual greatness of a Michael Jordan? Or is it along the lines of player empowerment and sovereignty exercised by the likes of LeBron James that clearly has appeared to have a residual impact? What is your thought about that question?
Well, first of all, when LeBron went to Miami, he was a free agent. He had the right to pick any team in the league that he thought would best. I think the mistake he made, in my opinion, was a PR mistake. The PR mistake was when he did the show, The Decision, with Jim Gray, and he said, I'm
Yes.
going to win not one, not two, not three, but 8 titles, which he still hasn't won. I think if I were LeBron's, and I love Maverick Carter, I'm very good friends with Maverick Carter, who's LeBron's marketing guy. I would have told him, do the interview, and the day you win your first ring, the first, not 8, have a show, hold up the ring, and say, this is why I came to Miami. I couldn't achieve this in Cleveland. Now, interestingly, if I can give you a contrast, and I'm not saying one is right, one's wrong, it's just personal preference. I asked Michael once, would you ever like to play with Bird and Magic, sort of like to recreate the Dream Team Olympic experience? And he said, are you nuts? I would never want to play with Bird and Magic. I wanted to beat their butts every night on a one-on-one competitive level. And just different personalities. That doesn't make LeBron's choice wrong. And I want to be crystal clear. I have great respect for LeBron as a player. I think his longevity, his impact, he's a great athlete. You know, I think he probably could have played other sports. And clearly, you know, when they ask me, do I think he's in the top 10? Of course, I think he's in the top 10. Now, I had an interesting discussion over dinner with President Obama about this very subject, like who's number 1, who's number 2. I would say to you publicly, what difference does it make who's number 2? Only thing that makes a difference is who's number 1. You know, who runs around 4 years and I say, God, don't you think that the team that lost that Super Bowl was a great team? No, they didn't win the Super Bowl. You're the one or you're not. And clearly LeBron will be in the pantheon of great players for a lot of years. Now, you could say, arguably, that the greatest player was Bill Russell because he won the most championships, 11 out of 13. You could say Oscar Robertson was the greatest player because he averaged a triple-double. When Michael was asked in Cleveland, when they presented the top 75 players of all time, who do you think is the greatest player of all time? Without hesitating, he said Oscar Robertson. When they asked LeBron, who's the greatest player of all time, without hesitating, he said LeBron James. Now, if someone asked me, who do you think is the greatest agent ever of all time? I'd say Larry Fleischer. He was the head of the union. He created the rules that allowed free agency, all the things he did. Now, if someone thought that I was the greatest, I would let them say that. I would let you say that. I would never say that myself. I just don't think it's appropriate for you to have to make that comment. But I want to be crystal clear nationally. I would never want to offend LeBron James. I like him. I think we have a good relationship. I think I have a pretty good relationship with Rich and Maverick. And I admire LeBron for his commitment to the game, his longevity. And you know, I think he's a completely different kind of a player than Michael. Most people that I respect in basketball, if you were comparing Kobe and LeBron, say Kobe's more like Michael and LeBron's more like Magic. And I can make an argument that Magic Johnson is one of the greatest players of all time. Now think about this, Stephen, okay? Yeah. In 1979, in the NCAA final, Magic squared off against Bird. At the time, it was the highest rated game in the history of basketball at any level. Magic won. 1 year later, the Lakers are playing Philly in the NBA Finals. And in game, Kareem gets hurt. Magic plays center. I don't know the exact. I think he had 37 and 14. He had the baby hook to win the game.
He had 42. He had 42. Yep.
42 and 17, right? Huge rebounds. He won the game, was the finals MVP and rookie of the year. Now, if he had a 1 year career, and I'm here to give my props to Magic Johnson, from the time he won the NCAA to the time, he'd be in the Hall of Fame just for that 1 year. That was one of the greatest impacts in basketball, college and pro in 1 year. On top of that, you know, as popular as Michael is, I think if Magic had the proper representation as a rookie, and we actually thought we're going to represent Magic. I think Magic could have done a lot of the things that Michael did at 84 in 1979. But he didn't have an agent that had the marketing background or savvy to understand the impact that Magic made in the number one media market, entertainment market in the United States.
David, before I let you get on out of here, I'd be remiss in neglecting to ask you this question. You and I go back many years, many decades. We've known each other since 1995, for crying out loud. Rough.
So yes, there is one more soundbite. Stephen A. asked another great question, and this was one of the best interviews that I've heard from Stephen A. Smith in a long time, and I think that he is able to do some of his best work when he's talking about Michael Jordan, because he truly respects that time and that era of basketball. And it's just really interesting to see how he performs and the way that he speaks, I would say, just so genuinely and honestly about that time. So I do want to I want to touch upon some of the things that he talked about. I think that talking about how different a player Michael Jordan and LeBron James are, I mean, think about it. Michael Jordan has never said that he was the greatest of all time. He doesn't believe in that conversation. Neither do I. Me personally, I think it's the dumbest conversation that we consistently have to have in the sports world. And this debate is so silly. Michael Jordan and LeBron James have never played against each other. They're not the same position. LeBron James is, a power forward masquerading as a guard, could never play in the triangle system, even if he tried. He cannot play real 5-man basketball where everybody's playing their position. The best basketball that I've ever seen, the most beautiful basketball, is when guards play like guards and centers play like centers and power forwards play like power forwards and wings, are able to play in their position. It's just the best basketball when a point guard is really the floor general of that team. And, you see the best basketball on display when every position comes together to win games. So I agreed with David Falk that he just can't get jiggy with LeBron James or any player coming out and saying that they are the greatest. And we're going to get into that in our next segment when we talk about MJ versus LeBron, because that is a really interesting discussion. Anointing yourself as the GOAT. That's something in sports that people want to say about you, especially in a team sport. When you play alongside other players, you cannot be you cannot be the greatest of all time. Not in a team sport. I don't think it's possible. So that's why I don't believe in the discussion at all. If I have to choose, I'm going to say that MJ is greater than LeBron. I mean, I think Wilt Chamberlain is greater than LeBron. I think David Robinson is greater than LeBron. I think Paul Pierce is greater than LeBron. I think so many players are. But again, that's my take. That's how I see it. I think players that play in their position and with a particular skill set, and they're able to shoot the ball, dribble the ball, and play the game of basketball just better than LeBron James, I'm going to have to say that they're better. And, those are what my eyes see. But again, Stephen A. Smith asked one last question, and really he wanted to get into just how David Falk sort of sees and views the current state of what being an agent is like. So we'll listen to him respond to that now.
Take the floor and answer that question, please.
It's a great question, Steve. So number one, I think that the principal role of an agent in business, whether you're a Hollywood agent or a sports agent, is to negotiate contracts. And something approximately 70% of all the contracts in the NBA today are not negotiated at all. If you're Wembayama and you're coming in the league as the number one pick, or Cooper Flag, there's no negotiations. There's a wage scale. If you're a great player like LeBron or Curry or Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, there's no negotiations. There's a maximum. If you're an average player, most of the teams are pretty well capped. There are mid-level exceptions, biannual exceptions. There are minimums. And so the role of an agent has been dramatically curtailed by the rules. It's very hard to make an impact. If I could give you an example. So in my career, as I mentioned, I had two rookies who are the highest paid players of all time. I negotiated the first ever $100 million contract for Alonzo Mourning in 1995 for $116 million for 13 years, and I made him turn it down. 1 year later, he signed for 105 for 7. he would have played 6 years for free. And he thought I'd lost my mind when I told him to turn it down. That was dramatically higher. I negotiated a contract the same year for Juwan Howard, who's a great friend and a great player. He made 70% more money than Chris Webber on the same team, playing the same position. They went to
Wow.
the same college. I couldn't do that today.
I remember.
You just can't. You can't do it. So the ability to separate, like in football, a great receiver separates himself. That's how he catches the ball. In today's NBA, an agent can't separate himself, and that frustrates me. It takes away a lot of your creativity, a lot of the things that I did that enabled me. Now I want to return the favor to my friend Rich Paul. I was disappointed that Rich Paul mistakenly compared my comment about cherry picking, which means that you are picking where you want to go, which a player has every right to do as a free agent, to the fact that three of the greatest coaches in the history of college basketball, Dean Smith, John Thompson, and Coach K, recommended me to their players. And the reason he recommended me wasn't because they liked me. It's because our track record with the rookies was so superior to anyone else in the business that it was an easy decision for them. Now, if I could give you and your listeners an analogy to answer your very specific question, Stephen, I think the greatest investor in the history of the United States was Warren Buffett, and he's also one of the richest men. Now, if the Securities and Exchange Commission, which regulates investments, passed a rule and said no investment manager can get more than a 6% return, it's illegal to get more than 6%, he would turn Warren Buffett into a first-year kid out of business school. I'll give you another example, okay? And I use this frequently. I'm going to take LeBron back to his days in Cleveland, okay? Early days. The NBA passes a rule. They say no player can score more than 12 points a game. It's like fouling out. Once you hit 12, you got to sit down. Now, a guy like LeBron James would score 12 points in the first 3 minutes of the game. He could literally go to a movie, come back, and meet with his teammates, after the game. So the season ends, and he goes out to lunch with his teammate, Matthew Dellavedova. And he says, Dally, what kind of year did you have? And Dally says, average 41 minutes and 12 points a game. And how'd you do, LeBron? LeBron said, well, I averaged 3 minutes and 12 points a game. And Dally says, well, I guess we're both the same kind of players, because the rules have homogenized LeBron's ability to be LeBron. And that's what the agent business, in my opinion, has become. So I was intrigued when the current MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, decided to represent himself. And while I think that there are many reasons that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander needs an agent, he may want to get traded. He may be having problems with the team. And there's a famous expression, Stephen, that a lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client. And so it's very difficult to walk in and say, I should be, I don't want to be here. That's why you need third-party people. But I think that a lot of great players are going to do what Kevin Durant did with Rich Kleiman, a little bit what LeBron did with Maverick Carter, and have one person as sort of like their business manager, because the role of the negotiations has to climb. Now, the other part that's critically important is marketing. And, I think that, I'm friendly with Aaron Goodwin. I think Aaron at one point had LeBron, Dwight Howard, Kevin Durant, and Horford. He did an amazing job for those guys in marketing. He got LeBron the $100 million deal with Nike as a rookie, got a big deal for Dwight Howard, royalties. I think there's a very, very important role for the star players to have someone off the court.
David Falk again. He basically says, hey, there's only room now for like one guy, just the way that the league has shifted and the business has shifted. Again, I don't know that I credit that to LeBron James per se, but I do think that it's it's allowed for players to have, more say in what they're going to do. Having that one go-to person, they're sort of like a catch-all, which I think it's a gift and a curse, right? Because that leaves one person on your team with probably a little bit too much power to make decisions on your behalf. So I don't know that I love it. And, I'm with David Falk that I don't know that I would want to be like necessarily an agent, during that kind of shift.
At all.
I can find.
Sorry about that. That was the wrong soundbite that I want to play. But David Falk, I think that he is one of the greatest agents in NBA history. I don't know if he's the greatest, but one could argue that he is. I mean, working alongside Michael Jordan, doing business with a guy like that, I mean, and being responsible for some of the best deals in NBA history. Perhaps he is the greatest, but I think that where this originated, honestly, is that so many people from the past, the older generations, they have a problem with all of the lies that LeBron James is telling on Mind the Game. I think they have a problem with him anointing himself a GOAT since 2016. I think they have a problem with Rich Paul telling lies, blaming players, throwing players under the bus, saying that LeBron James is the GOAT in a team sport. They're doing something, they're ruining this fraternity of the sport. Disrespecting players, saying that LeBron James could average 50 when he was in high school, disrespecting Wilt Chamberlain, saying that Giannis would average 250 points in his era. That was absolutely disgusting. So, of course, David Falk is going to, that was clearly shade. Guys, think about it. LeBron has come out, Pat McAfee show, saying that Giannis would average 250 in Wilt Chamberlain's era. That's what he said. Why can't David Falk come out and say, well, if Michael Jordan was able to cherry pick his teams, he would have 15 rings, meaning that he would have won every single year that he played. If he was able to pick, Michael Jordan would have been a winner every year because that's just how great he was. That's just how much of a winner he was. LeBron James picked his teams throughout his whole career. He picked his teams. And when you pick your teams, you pick your teammates. When you're able to pick your coaches, you're able to pick everything around you, essentially, then why didn't you win more? That's the question that I have. Why did LeBron James not win more with all the picking and choosing he's been able to do? With all the manufacturing, he's only able to manufacture 4 rings. He was only able to cheat his way to 4 rings. 4 wins in the finals, 4 out of 10. You're 4-6 in the finals, but you got to pick all these teams. Make it make sense. It doesn't. The math doesn't math. If I get to pick every single thing around me and orchestrate the win, then why didn't I win? Clearly, I wasn't that good. If I'm cheating and I still can't win, that's crazy work. But I want you guys to recognize where this comes from. This is the battle of the eras is at a fever pitch. And I keep saying that. And it just gets tougher. The tension gets thicker. You can cut it with a scissor. Could you imagine LeBron James and Michael Jordan in the same room right now in this moment? I can't imagine what they would say to each other. All Michael Jordan has to say is 6-0. LeBron James is part of the 4-6 kingdom, right? But that brings me to our next topic, MJ versus LeBron, and how this has sort of changed the landscape of sports media and how we talk about the sport and how it's divided the sport. LeBron James has been the most polarizing player in all of NBA history, in my opinion. And First Take, they went in on this topic. Stephen Ass Smith, he's been capping for LeBron James for years, saying that Kobe Bryant isn't even in the discussion of being a GOAT. We don't even talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and other players, Wilt Chamberlain. We don't talk about the guys that were actually called the GOAT before Michael Jordan. And we skipped over all of these people to say that LeBron James is the only person that should be in the comparison to Michael Jordan. Stephen A. Smith emphatically said, like, if you don't have LeBron James as top 2 and second to Jordan, then you don't know basketball. That point blank period, he is top 2. Nobody else is in the discussion. He said it multiple times. And so he backpedals and he gives Kareem Abdul-Jabbar some more flowers, and he's just like, if you want to put LeBron James down to 3 because you feel like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is better due to his resume and blah blah blah. I mean, he's backpedaling. He's starting to backpedal, and honestly, I do believe that it's because of the return of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's coming back to NBC. He's going to be part of the media. He's going to have, a voice in the media again, and it's going to be, I think that this is one of the most exciting times for the NBA. Michael Jordan coming back to the NBA means that LeBron's leaving. That's what that means. He's coming back after 23 years. LeBron James is sunsetting. Michael Jordan's coming back. He's coming back to set some, to right some wrongs, I think, to debunk some narratives. And maybe he's not going to address narratives. Maybe he's not going to address the GOAT conversation. I know he hates the GOAT conversation. He probably hates LeBron James fans. He hates this polarizing discussion for sure. I know he does. He probably hates debate culture because basketball isn't really something to debate. What I like versus what you like, it doesn't have to be an angry discussion. If I say that, I think that a player is greater than LeBron James, for someone to insult my opinion or to say, that like my opinion is somehow misguided based on what I see, to me, those discussions are what make it negative. That's what makes, sports discussion sometimes feel bad. We don't have to personally insult someone else. We don't have to think that what our opinions are somehow facts, because they're not. Right. So the lens that I'm going to see the greatest player in, or the best players who are playing now in, might be different from yours. And we need to be more respectful of people's opinions. What I say is not the law. What I say is not the final word. So, I just think that we need to be open. We need to be flexible. And what makes sports discussion great is when everybody's voice can be heard. And so, like I said, this MJ versus LeBron debate, it got a little chippy on Get Up in the morning because Michael Wilbon emphatically responded back to Stephen A. Smith, just saying, hey, you're absolutely insane if you think that I'm going to put LeBron James over Kobe Bryant. Why am I not allowed to say that Magic Johnson is better? I don't have to rank LeBron James over Magic Johnson and some of the other great players, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, and a myriad of other players. We don't have to do that just to be respectful and have appreciation for today's game. What we have to do is judge the players that are playing in today's sport against the players that they're playing against. That's what I think we have to do. I think that that's the responsibility of the media, YouTube content creators that cover the sport as well. Let's talk about these guys and compare them to each other, because it doesn't serve us to compare to Michael Jordan, and none of these guys have reached the heights. And outside of that, I mean, what is the purpose of that? They're not playing against each other today. So it doesn't serve us, and comparisons are the thief of joy. It does. I think these discussions do make it hard to enjoy today's game, because we have to then point out all the things that we're missing. When we hear that LeBron James is the greatest of all time, no, we have to point out all the holes in his game instead of celebrating him. But that's what these discussions do. So I want to play for you, the discussion they had on First Take, and we'll react.
At all. I can find plenty of negative things to say about LeBron James. Without hesitation. I won't, but I could. Let me stick to basketball and tell you this. He's on the Mount Rushmore. He's one of the greatest players to have ever lived. I have him number 2 all time. But I appreciated and respected your take, Wilbon, on Get Up earlier when you talked about Kobe needing to be in that conversation, Kareem needing to be in that conversation. I got no issues with that. But to me, LeBron James is number 2 all time. The thing that we have to understand that's important about this conversation is when we debate the GOAT, the negativity of it comes from LeBron and his camp, nobody else. When we say he's number 2 all time, we're appreciating the fact that of the thousands upon thousands of players that have played in the NBA since 1950, okay? LeBron James, there's only one player we look at and we say definitively we think was better. And that was Michael Jordan. What did I say to Rich Paul one day? You act like that's an insult. Rich Paul's response, it is an insult. Because that is how they have acted when it comes to the GOAT conversation. And that's why a guy like Mike Wilbon has been on the #1 show in sports television for the last 25 years. Congratulations to you and my man, Tony Kornheiser. We're #1 in the mornings. They're #1, period. They're #1, period. We know our place. Here's the deal. Mike Wilbon has said this publicly. We're not some PR machine for you. Didn't you say that about LeBron and his kid? You said we ain't some PR. You know, we gonna watch what we watch, and we come to look. Even in saying that he's the greatest you've ever seen, Kendrick Perkins, you have said, damn PR machine. I'll say what I mean and mean what I say. So you just happen to feel that he's the greatest, but you were recognizing the fact that they were trying to compel people to say he was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't say that about himself. Kobe Bryant didn't say that about himself. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't say that about himself. Bill Russell didn't say that about himself. Tim Duncan didn't say that about himself. Nobody said that. Nobody but him and his camp. Steph Curry hasn't said that about himself. Steph Curry has never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Ray Allen never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Reggie Miller never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Allen Houston never called himself the greatest shooter of all time. Nobody called himself the greatest in anything but that man and his camp. And then when we refute it in any way, people like myself and Mike Wilbon and others, when we walk the streets, we're haters. So the debate and the vitriol and all of that stuff comes directly from them. And as it pertains to David Falk, let me say this one last thing. Who is David Falk? Let's remind the world of who he is. When we have a GOAT conversation, America, do you realize that David Falk is in the conversation as the GOAT of agents in history? Yeah. David Falk, who, by the way, was somebody that I butted heads with in the past, Mike, before we got to know each other better, before I learned the error of my ways because of his brilliance. And then in the aftermath of all of that, we cultivated a very strong friendship. I got a lot of love and respect for this man. David Falk is unquestionably one of, if not the greatest agent in the history of sports. And I know of no one, I've encountered no one in the sports agency industry who would refute that kind of assertion about him. They all, black, white, and everything in between, they all say, he might be the greatest ever. Yeah. That is who said Jordan instead of LeBron. And yes, he did business with Jordan along with various other players. And he's the kind of dude that's going to always go with his guys because that's how he roll. But it doesn't make him a liar.
Well, I said he's not supposed to be objective. He's not. He has never been. He's not. And so we have to consider the source used to be a phrase in the culture that people understood and respected. I'm not sure it is anymore. But Perk, I love the point you make while we disagree fundamentally. I love the point you make about expectations. There's no doubt you're right about that, about the expectations he had to meet. I mean, Michael Jordan was selected 3rd in the draft. He didn't have the same set of expectations coming in to the NBA of LeBron. No one has. But there's so many other factors for me that put Michael Jordan way over the top. I'll tell you what's interesting. I'm not a big social media guy. And this bothers me that there's so many sites and so many things that are harshly critical of LeBron I'm talking about just basketball now. You don't ever see that with Michael. The fear, and I do mean fear from his own peers when you hear the testimonials are sort of amazing. But I don't want to get too far back into that. Stephen A., to me, you made the important point. The men you've mentioned, none of them say, I was the greatest. I had these conversations with Kobe Bryant and Michael. And the men you've mentioned, none of them say, I was the greatest. I had these conversations with Kobe Bryant and Michael and Magic, and they always would say, wait a minute.
So did I.
They point to other guys, as you know, and say, wait. Kobe and Michael would say, wait a minute, he didn't win as many championships with Jerry West. Hold on, you better mention Kareem. They would all mention Bill Russell. So the notion that anyone is saying, I'm the greatest, there's one guy in the history of sports I give total pass to saying I'm the greatest, and that's where GOAT comes from, Muhammad Ali. He's the only one who gets to say, I'm the greatest. Ali invented the conversation. He was, and to me, still is the greatest because he didn't just change his sport. He didn't just change sports. He changed the world.
Changed society.
He changed the nation's position on war. So Muhammad Ali is the GOAT, and he can say, I'm the greatest. Everybody else needs to defer.
Let's leave it on that note.
Wow. I mean, everybody else does need to defer. And that's the origin of the GOAT conversation. That came from Muhammad Ali. And what is boxing? It's an individual sport. To me, that was his marketing gimmick. That was what Muhammad Ali stood for, being the GOAT, I'm the greatest. That's what you do in boxing. You want to be the greatest, right? It's an individual sport. I can see people saying, Tiger Woods is the greatest. Serena Williams is the greatest. These are individual sports. You can't say that in basketball. You can't say that in football. So we can say who we think the GOAT is, but there's just really, to me, it's it's just such a nuanced conversation, and it's always going to be a debate. And I just don't think that players should actually be involved in it. I think it's quite classless. I think that it's disrespectful to those who played before you, those who you will never be able to face in competition, especially when the circumstances have changed and are so much different. And today, LeBron fans always need context behind the box score. The context. You only need context when you haven't met the standard, when you haven't met the requirement. You need context. You need context when you can't respond to 6-0. You need context when you can't respond to 10 scoring titles to 1. You need context when you can't respond to Michael Jordan's depoy and 9 all defensive first teams to LeBron's 5. And they want to lie. Oh, he has 6 all defensive teams. Yes, total, but he's only got 5 all defensive first teams. So, don't forget, guys, and don't just remember. Don't let Rich Paul, don't let LeBron James revise history. Don't let them do it. Don't let someone completely erase all of the 75 years of basketball history. It's too important. There's too much history there. And the sport was built on the backs of those guys, the Bill Russells, the Wilt Chamberlains, the Bob Cousy's, the Jerry West, all those guys, the Michael Jordan who made it possible for these kinds of contracts to happen today. So guys, there's going to be so much more. You guys know that there's going to be so much more content. There's going to be so much more exposing of today's players, LeBron James, Clutch Sports. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So just buckle up, get ready, fasten your seatbelts, because it's going to be a long ride. It's going to be I think 2025, 2026 season is going to be a long season. Fingers crossed LeBron James retires, fingers crossed. But obviously now the Knicks game just ended in dramatic fashion. They won the game. Salute to the New York Knicks. I was really scared that they were going to lose this game. I thought they might go down 3-0 and there was just no chance. But, can the Knicks make it a series? They have. They won today. They made it a series. Really excited for them. 106-100, I believe they won. So great comeback from the Knicks. Honestly, this comeback, it was really largely due to Karl Anthony Towns. And it's funny because my dad texted me during this game and he's like, I want Randall back. And I'm like, no, you don't. You do not want Julius Randle back. So Randall is going to Randall in the Minnesota series as well. So, it's interesting because I said that Karl Anthony Towns wasn't going to be the piece that they needed, but he's gotten them further. And, the Knicks did win the trade. I don't think that the Minnesota Timberwolves won the trade. I think that they'll be out in 5 or 6 games. I think that they're going to be eliminated from the Western Conference Finals. And, the Knicks, they have a chance. They just made it a series. Halliburton, the Pacers, they fell to the Knicks today. And, what I've said and what I've been saying is that this Knicks-Pacers series is going to boil down to, and it will boil down to coaching and scoring depth. That's what it's going to boil down to. Period. Scoring depth, coaching. Thibodeau needs to be fired. Thibodeau absolutely needs to be fired. The Knicks need to do that, but they're not going to. They're just not going to, and that's the issue. The Knicks they are not going to get rid of Thibodeau, and they need to do that. When we take a look at what happened in today's game, it was all because of Tibbs and his coaching. I was so angry to watch game 1 and game 2 and to see that drop coverage. I'm tired of it. Guard the goddamn perimeter. How many times is Naismith just going to unload from behind the arc? And I'm glad that, Naismith is not, badly injured. This is a competitive series. And again, it's going to boil down to coaching and scoring depth. So Karl Anthony Towns came up big in this game, and we're all proud of him. The big bodega came up big. So we got to see what happens in game 4. Can the Knicks take both of these games from the Pacers at home? Can they get back to the Garden and close out this series? You know, can they make it to the finals? And I think today's game, they made it a series, and that's what we can hope for, is that the Knicks are going to pull out of this series. New York fans all over, we are rejoicing that they pulled out a win today. So salute to the Knicks, salute to New Yorkers all over, and we will, be headed to Game 4, another game in the Pacers arena, and we're going to have to do it again. They need to win this next game in the Pacers home as well. They're going to have to. But when we take a look back, and I do want to take a look back at the Timberwolves series versus OKC, I mean, that series, it didn't look all that competitive either, and they came in to win Game 3 as well. And when we take a look at their team stats and what they were able to do last night, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he was stopped. He didn't get to the free throw line as much as he normally does. He didn't have 10+ free throw attempts. Last night, he was 100% from the line, so 4 of 4. But he scored just 14 points. They stopped him. Anthony Edwards went off for 30. He finally shot much better. He's shooting the ball better. He's still in love with the 3-pointers. And, he made them tonight. He made them last night. So the Wolves shot better. 55 of 96 field goals. OKC only scored 35 of 86 attempts. So, they shot almost, Wolves went for almost 60% from the floor. They made 20 of their 43 3-pointers. OKC is not a good 3-point shooting team. They shot 44 threes and only made 14 of them. So 31% from behind the arc, and the Wolves were 50%. So, can the Wolves have another great shooting game? We don't know. Are they going to shoot 50% from 3 next game? Perhaps not. But they were not good from the line. They shot 13 of their 17. They made 13 of their 17 free throws. OKC shot more free throws and they made more. So 17 of 19, 80, almost 90% from the line. Rebounds. The Wolves killed them on the glass. They rebounded them by almost 20 rebounds. They were just much better at rebounding. So they boxed out. They boxed out and they hit the glass. They crashed. 30 assists. They assisted the ball better. They did everything better in this game. It was a blowout. So it was a blowout in the first goddamn quarter. The Wolves came out very aggressive. They were blitzing OKC. They were not trying to go out sad. And that's what I can appreciate. So if they lose in 5 or 6 games, at least they came out and they put some respect on their names and why they made it to the Western Conference Finals. You take a look at points in the paint. The Wolves killed them there as well. They took care of the ball better, whereas OKC turned the ball over 15 times. They're a team that's really good at exploiting turnovers and scoring off of those turnovers. So they were able to get 15 points out of the Wolves' 10 turnovers. The Wolves were able to get 16 points out of their 15 turnovers. So, OKC is better at capitalizing on turnovers and converting those to points. So, I think that this game, it did show a lot. The Wolves led by, this was almost a 50-point blowout. They led by 45 points at one point. And when you take a look at OKC and how they lost this game, I mean, just look at the goddamn box score. This is very sad. This is a sad-ass box score. Nobody scored 20 out of their starting lineup. This team, with all the depth in the world, it looks like they point shaved or something. Honestly, what the hell happened here? This was one of the worst games that they played all season long, let alone in the postseason. So when we move fast forward to Minnesota Timberwolves and what they were able to do, you take a look at this box score and just how you had people scoring in their starting lineup in double digits, also off the bench in double digits. So they just played a much better game all around. And that's just the bottom line. They took better care of the ball. Anthony Edwards, though, had 4 turnovers, 5 of 8 from 3-point land. Really great game he played outside of the turnovers. Plus minus 36, plus 36. Julius Randle had 24 points. He bounced back from an awful game. He had a completely terrible game in game 2. So, I think that I think this is going to be a series that could surprise us. You know, who knows what's going to happen? Can the Wolves make magic? Can Anthony Edwards continue to be explosive in this series? We know he's good for at least one explosive game, but we don't know. We just don't know. The NBA right now, the postseason has been so unpredictable, and these series have been about what role players can do. That's what these series have been about. But then when we just take a look at some shot selection in the first quarter, I mean, you take a look at what Ant-Man did to OKC in the very first quarter of that game. This was an embarrassing loss for Oklahoma City Thunder. Skip Bayless should have been ducking the smoke. He shouldn't have came to YouTube at all. They got blown off the goddamn floor. This was embarrassing. After just winning the MVP, blown off the floor. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they detonated him. They detonated him, and T-Wolves blew their asses out. Ant-Man literally scored more than the entire Oklahoma City Thunder team in the first quarter. This is Ant-Man. 3 shots from behind the arc, 3 in the paint. And this is OKC. 1 shot behind the arc and 4 in the paint. Not even 3 in the paint. So they made a total of 4 baskets, and Ant-Man made a total of 6 baskets. So when you talk about, just their ability to score, they came out aggressive offensively and defensively. Like I said, blitzing them right away, right out of the gate. Timberwolves are not going to lay down in this series. The Knicks are not going to lay down in their series. And this is just all really so exciting to watch. So, I do want to open the phone lines up. I am going to read some of the super chats that came through. I want to hear from you guys. Thank you all for being here. By the way, let's get the likes up. So we have, how many likes do we have so far? We're at 156. Let's get the likes up. We had about 200 people watching. It's free to like the video. So like, share the video out. Let's grow the Sports Tea audience and community. We have a lot of great people who come in here. They like to, just engage with other like minds, people who really want to be positive and share some really great things about sports. So we'll get to the super chat. So I do want to shout out Michael Johnson. Thank you for the $1.99 super chat. You are the truth. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that compliment. It's not that serious. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Fans of basketball, please stop arguing with these nonsensical, rabid LeBron fans. This conversation dumbs you down and promotes this stupidity. I mean, it's true. It really is true. Shy Rider West Sider 23. Thank you and salute to you for the $5 super chat. Salute, Dom, and I agree with you. The Admiral is a far superior player than Leped. Also, Leped is part of the 4 and 10 kingdom. You gotta love it. You just gotta love it. I do want to go over some comments that I saw as well in the chat that were pretty good. William Wright, if the Wolves can win game 4 versus the Thunder, the series could at least go 6 games. There could maybe even be 7, but if the Thunder win game 4, they may win the series in 5 games. I agree, William Wright, but I'm glad that Ant-Man at least got 1 game. They're not out here to just get swept off the floor, right? They want to make it a competitive series. They're trying. So I see the effort, and hopefully they come out in game 4 just ready to go, ready to be aggressive and win that game too. So, I am curious to see what's going to happen in these series. I do, like I said, I want to open the phone lines. I have time for 1 phone call. So call in, guys. Talk to me nice. I really do want to hear from you in the meantime while we're waiting for a phone call to come through. What I will do is read some comments, and we already have a caller. Thank you for calling Sports Tea. Talk to me nice. Who do we have on the line?
Hi, Dominique. It's Maverick.
Hi, Maverick. How's it going? This isn't Maverick Carter, is it?
Oh, wrong Maverick. Look. There's so
kidding.
many
I just wanna
Mavericks,
make
but
sure
there's
that
only
Clutch
one
Sports-
Maverick, the Enigma.
I just want to make sure Clutch Sports is not out to get me. So, how are you doing,
Not
Maverick?
Clutch Sports coming out to assassinate you, Dom.
I know, right? How's it going, Maverick? Happy Sunday. What topic did you want to speak on? So, what's on
Well,
your
I wanna
heart and on your
cover-
mind?
Well, I want to cover this whole, this tireless GOAT debate that just keeps on running and running and running and running. Look, I have this one hitter quitter that I hit LeBron fans with. And like, look, I have to always soften the blow first because I will be like, look, I have a level of some respect for LeBron, but it's not greater than the respect that I have for Jordan when it comes to the sport. When we talk about the sport of basketball, Michael Jordan is many moons greater than LeBron. And here's why. LeBron creates super teams by collusion. Jordan creates super teams through leadership. Another thing, name one other player that has done all of these in one season. Matter of fact, more than one season. Name me a player that got all defensive first team selection, a scoring title, a championship, a finals MVP, and league MVP all in one season, not named Michael Jordan. Can you name one?
There is literally not one. He's the only player to do all four of those things. So salute to you.
Thank you, Dominique. See, you get it. But the media heads that Clutch Sports pays off, and trust me, Clutch Sports got analysts that be on these places too. They will still shove that LeBron is at least number 2 all time, if not number 1, which I think is still very egregious. Do you think that's egregious?
I do. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, egregious, I think, to put it lightly.
But let me I also wanted to cover the conference finals from both sides one time.
Oh yeah, go
all
right
I gotta
on
say
ahead.
is,
Do you think the Knicks can? I mean, they've obviously made it a series by winning today, but what do you think can happen? Like, do you think they can actually make the finals?
what do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think, the Knicks are a great team, but I think that they're being mishandled. And look, I'm trying to take my bias out of it because I was never really a fan of Coach Thibodeau after what I saw, how he mishandled Derrick Rose in Chicago. And then he came up here trying to put his same philosophy only to get a first round exit. So that's why I have an animosity towards Tom Thibodeau. And sometimes you just can't teach an old dog new tricks. The same things keep happening over and over, which is why the Knicks lost the first 2 games. I'll admit, a lot of the times they weren't hitting their shots. They was hitting their shots tonight. You know what I'm saying? If they can maintain consistency, and if Thibodeau doesn't become so stubborn to not let Jalen Brunson get a breather, because the reason why Jalen Brunson has so many fouls is because he plays most of the minutes out of the starting 5 of the Knicks.
Right.
If he could just let Jalen get a breather and pretend like he's not the only star on this team, like you could run an offense through Cat for a second, you could run an offense through even McBride for a bit, or even Bridges. You know what I'm saying? Use everyone else. You know what I'm saying? OG Anunoby is a decent third option. Use everyone else, just not Jalen Brunson.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. That, like I said, this series comes down to coaching and scoring depth. Coach Thibodeau, Tom Thibodeau, is coaching like he's coaching through brain fog. Literally, I think he's got brain fog. Maybe he's brain dead. I don't know what's going on, but he is making some really poor decisions and some poor decisions down the stretch. And it's like it's boiling down to the players and their ability to score the ball. And their
down the stretch is appropriate too, because how the heck they blow that 17-point lead late in the fourth like that? How?
Exactly. So it's all reliant upon Brunson and Cat to drag this team to the finals. And it's been a really nice run for the Knicks. New York fans, the Garden Arena, it's blowing up. And I think that New Yorkers are extremely happy. We have not been in the Eastern Conference Finals for so long. So, this isn't a huge accomplishment, but, to lose because the coach was making bad decisions and for the coach to be an issue and to have been an issue for several seasons, and they're not doing anything about it because he's just like he leans into, this toughness. You know, so he's a very tough coach, and I think that the Knicks, they want to keep that
Right.
identity, so that's why they're not firing him. But I think he should. I
Right.
think he
And they
should be
like,
fired
and
if you're
think
gonna
about it, New
coach.
York City thrives off of being tough as a culture. So I think they're
Exactly.
keeping him around as to perpetuate the culture of New York
But I
City.
think that they
But
could
this,
fire him though and bring in Mike Malone, and they could get better.
and to be honest, I think that's what y'all should do. Should y'all not get over the hump? Because this whole giving Jalen Brunson almost 40 minutes a game thing, it's not going to work.
I do think that they've decided as an organization that they were going to accept that. But I could be wrong. But Maverick, I just want
Alright.
to thank you so much for your take and
Hold
your
on, wait,
call.
whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't get to the Wolves yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Let me
What's your
talk about
thoughts?
my Timberwolves.
What's your
Let me
thoughts
hype
on
up
the
my
Wolves?
Timberwolves.
Go right on
Let me
ahead.
talk.
What's your thought on the Wolves and this
I'm
last
telling
game?
you, y'all.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm crazy, but the fact that we were able to blow them out like that, I swear the referees are in on this. Look. If we were able to blow them out like this, the past 2 games, why haven't we done it? You know what I'm saying? Like you said, SGA didn't get to the line as much. All Finch had to do was switch the strategy and let Shea actually drive with a clouded paint instead of, contacting him early like he's a big man. No, you gotta let Shea come up and then you cloud him when he gets in the paint.
Yeah.
That's one thing that they did right. Another thing that they did right is giving some of the younger guys more minutes, like TSJ and like Jalen Clark. Giving those guys more minutes to actually put in some damage, because those guys actually have quicker lateral quickness. They have, footwork. And more importantly, they have size to not only, score and rebound on the other end, but to actually defend Shea, because Shea struggles against bodies that are bigger than him. Going up against slower guys like McDaniels, he eats those guys for lunch. Going up against his cousin Nikhil, he eats him for lunch because he's family and he's always played ball against him. You got to throw bigger, faster bodies at Shea in order to live in him, and force somebody else to try to win the game for Shea instead of letting Shea drive the ball down your neck and get 14, 15, 100 free throws. You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, when you look at the tapes, half them times when Shea gets fouled the first 2 games don't even look like he's fouling. Like, it look like he's flopping. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm with you.
And think about basketball purists want Ant-Man to go far.
Look, I do think that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a flopper. I do think that his mid-range shot is predicated on a push-off. And if you can detonate that, then you're on your way. And they do have a chance. The Timberwolves do have a chance to win this series if they can stop SGA. So that's what they need to be able to do, is to stop SGA, stop him from getting to the line, stop him, from utilizing that push-off, defend him. That's just what they need to do. So
I'm gonna quote Isaiah Thomas real quick from the Pistons legend. My job in the playoffs is to take away what my opponent likes to do best. Now that we know what Shea likes to do best, we're going to limit that and force him to attack in other ways. Look, I don't mind if they shoot a bunch of threes a game, because, like you said, Thunder aren't that good of a three-point shooting team. We couldn't do that against the Warriors or the Lakers, because all they do is spam threes. Right. With the Thunder, we can get away with that as long as on offense we pound the paint more. Because let's just be real, we outsize them a bit. Because Holmgren is lanky, he's not built, he's not swole. Hartenstein is really the only paint protector they legit have. Other than that, everybody else can get bullied. You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean. But
Ant needs to go to the hole more instead of settling for jump shots. And please curb your hate for Julius Randle. I know you don't trust the Timberwolves because Julius Randle's on this team. Trust me, with a leader like Ant-Man, he can empower Julius to be more aggressive. We've seen it in the last series against Golden State. It's no different than when, Pippen was by himself when Jordan first retired and how he couldn't get over the hump. But when Jordan came back, they almost instantly won 3 back-to-back-to-back. After they lost to Orlando, because Jordan put the heart back in Pippen. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay. I'm with
you.
So
please
and,
be nice to my Timberwolves.
I'm nice to the Timberwolves. I just, again, if they get eliminated in this round, so if they don't make it out of the Western Conference Finals, then what do you think I'm going to say? They didn't win the trade, because they've already been to the Western Conference Finals. So thank you so much, Maverick, for your call. It was really great.
If we lose Fire Finch. Thank you, Dominic. Have a peaceful night.
All righty, you too. Have a good one. Thank you so much for your call. Oh, you guys are just a joy. It's an absolute pleasure to come in here and connect with you all and just have these really amazing conversations surrounding the game. So I want to thank you guys for having me and for showing up and showing out. Really, really appreciate you all. And I hope that everyone has a good night. But before you leave, don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. This is really key to share the video out, share it on social media, share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, well, X or whatever we're calling it now, Twitch, TikTok. Let everybody know about Sports Tea so we can really grow the community. Thank you all so much for showing up tonight, and happy Sunday. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye-bye.